If you are over 60 and have a single dollar saved for retirement, stop scrolling immediately. What happened to me 3 days before my retirement party is the most dangerous lesson about trust, marriage, and family greed you will ever hear in your entire life. If you skip this video, you might miss the exact pattern that ruins thousands of senior lives every single year. I sat at my own retirement party, holding my wife, Sarah's hand as she raised her glass to toast my 35 years of backbreaking labor as a civil engineer. Everyone in the room was clapping and cheering, but under that warm tablecloth, my cold, trembling fingers were clutching a bank document that proved my wife of 35 years and my estranged brother had been quietly destroying my life behind my back to leave me broke, homeless, and left for dead to our whole community in suburban Ohio. Sarah and I were the ultimate high school sweethearts. I spent 3 decades working 60 hours a week, destroying my body and sacrificing my youth so we could enjoy our golden years in total comfort. I trusted Sarah blindly with our household finances for 35 years. Whenever I asked why our accounts weren't growing faster, she would cry, complain about inflation, and gently push me to work weekend overtime. 2 years ago, when I suffered a severe heart attack, I remember lying in the ICU, watching her whisper to the doctor in the hallway. Her first question wasn't if I would survive. It was whether my $1.5 million life insurance policy was fully active during a medical emergency. At the time, I thought it was just shock. I was dead wrong. It was cold, calculated anticipation. The crack in her perfect lie opened 3 days before my retirement celebration. Sarah always kept a heavy wooden chest locked in our attic with a brass padlock, swearing it held her late mother's childhood memories. Out of respect, I never touched it. But on Tuesday, an electrician inspecting our attic wiring accidentally knocked that trunk off its stand, snapping the rusted lock wide open. When I went up to clean the mess, there were no childhood photos. There were black legal binders labeled Blue Horizon Ventures LLC. The managing partners were Sarah and my younger brother, David, a man who had walked away from our family 15 years ago after a bitter legal war over our father's estate. Inside were 6 years of forged bank statements. Sarah had been systematically draining my private retirement trust, small monthly transfers totaling over $700,000 directly into David's private offshore account. That night, I pretended to sleep. Around midnight, I heard Sarah slip out to the kitchen. I crept into the shadows and caught her whispering into her phone. Just hold on 3 more days. David, once his $1.2 million pension lump sum hits our joint account on Friday, I file the divorce papers. He won't have a single penny left for a lawyer. He'll be living on the street. Hearing those words felt like a sledgehammer to my chest. My blood boiled. My first instinct was to burst into the room, scream, and throw her out into the night. But anger is a terrible financial advisor. I knew if I confronted her right then, her high-priced lawyers would tie me up in court, freeze everything, and leave me destitute in my final years. So I forced myself to take a deep breath, walk back to bed, and make a silent vow. I wasn't going to get mad. I was going to get absolute revenge. The very next morning, I drove 2 hours out of town to consult with Mr. Vance, a ruthless forensic accountant and estate attorney who specializes in high-asset marital fraud. When I showed him the forged binders from the attic, a razor-sharp smile crossed his face. He told me Sarah and David had committed federal wire fraud and grand larceny, and that they had made one catastrophic mistake. In her greed, Sarah had forged my signature to use our debt-free family home as collateral for a $500,000 loan on David's luxury beachfront condo in Florida. Together, Mr. Vance and I executed a legal counterstrike. First, because my company pension allowed for flexible disbursement options, I legally restructured my $1.2 million payout. Instead of directing the money into our joint account as Sarah expected, I created an irrevocable family wealth trust managed exclusively by an independent bank trustee for the sole benefit of my adult children and grandchildren. Because this was done before any divorce was filed, it was 100% legal, permanent, and completely untouchable. Next, Mr. Vance alerted the mortgage lenders fraud division about the forged signatures on the Florida property. The federal authorities immediately froze the property and opened a criminal Investigation into David and Sarah, which brings us right back to my retirement party. Sarah raised her champagne glass with tears in her eyes, telling 50 of our closest friends how proud she was of her hard-working husband. I smiled back, took a slow sip of my drink, and checked my watch. She had no idea that while she was making her glowing speech, federal agents were kicking down the door of David's penthouse with an arrest warrant for financial fraud and grand theft. When we arrived home that evening, Sarah ran straight to her laptop. I watched her from the hallway as she logged into our joint bank account, eagerly awaiting the arrival of my $1.2 million pension deposit. Her smile instantly turned into absolute terror. The screen read, "Account closed. Balance zero. All credit cards revoked." She spun around, her face pale as a sheet, her voice cracking. "Robert, what is this? Where's the pension deposit? Where's our money?" I stood calmly by the fireplace, pulled a thick manila envelope from my coat, and placed it gently on the table. Inside were three things: a formal summons for federal wire fraud, an eviction notice showing our house was now 100% owned by my kids' trust, and divorce papers served strictly on my terms. She collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably, begging for mercy, and trying to blame David. I didn't say a single word. I picked up my packed suitcase, walked out the front door, and never looked back. It has been 8 months since that night. David was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison for grand theft and fraud. Sarah lost every single thing in court. Today, she lives in a tiny studio apartment, working 2 retail shifts a day, just to pay back every single cent she stole from my children's trust fund. As for me, I am finally enjoying a peaceful, quiet retirement surrounded by my kids and grandchildren in a beautiful coastal home. Yesterday, I took that old, padlocked chest from the attic, brought it out to my backyard fire pit, and threw it into the flames. As I watched 35 years of secrets and betrayals turn to ash, I took a deep breath, smiled, and realized for the first time in my life, I didn't just survive their evil plan. I won my freedom.